Welcome to the Biz Bash podcast, where we make biz strategy a piece of cake. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Cami, but you might know us better as Eliza Ann Calligraphy and Cami Monet. We want to help you, our fellow stationers, artists, and calligraphers, confidently build a profitable and personality-driven creative biz.
We're here to share our honest-to-goodness advice and actionable strategies for ambitious artists.
So put on your party hat, quit being a procrastinator gator, and let's get this party started.
Hey y'all, welcome back for episode 26 of the Biz Bash podcast. Today we are talking about imposter syndrome, the monster within.
Dun, dun, dun!
What is imposter syndrome? We actually took time to look up the definition on Google. I've actually never looked up the Google definition before, so this was really interesting. And what it says is imposter syndrome, also known as the imposter phenomenon, imposterism, fraud syndrome, or the imposter experience, man, that's a lot of other names, is a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. So basically, this is the fear of being found out or somebody calling our bluff, essentially.
Exactly. And the key word here is that this is a pattern. It's not something that's going to just happen once. It's going to happen multiple times. I know imposter syndrome has happened to me a lot. It still happens. It's just one of the things. And we're going to talk all about that today and like what causes our imposter syndrome and kind of triggers it. And it's not just creatives. Anyone can fall prey to imposter syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I remember having conversations with like certain friends, maybe they aren't in the creative industry, just saying, oh, I don't know if I feel worthy at work. I don't know if I'm the one for the job. And so they're dealing with it in their day-to-day lives too, even as someone who isn't a creative. So no one is immune, basically. And I joked earlier with Cami, I was like, if you haven't dealt with imposter syndrome, like, good for you. But the reality is...
We cut that out.
Oh, we cut that out. No, yeah, we were joking before we, like, actually started recording. But the reality is, like, most people, almost everybody deals with this, especially when running a business.
Yeah, imposter syndrome always makes me think of that meme. Okay, there's like a little orange cat, and there's like a tiger statue next to him, and it's like, and he's like in the same position as the tiger statue at the entrance to the door, and it's like when you lie on your resume but still get the job, and that's exactly what I think of when I think of imposter syndrome, just being the little cat next to the tiger, lying on your resume.
Yeah, just trying to make it like every day.
Yes, and you're like, oh, I hope no one finds out that I'm not really a tiger and you're just a kitten. But the fact is, you are a tiger and you got the job. So anyway, we'll get into that.
I'm like, how does one go about lying on a resume? I don't know if I would have the balls to do that.
I don't know. I mean, I guess you could just like, embellish things instead of being like, I'm really good at Microsoft Word. You could be like, I am an expert in all things Microsoft, kind of thing like that, where you just brag on yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I think
it's not the point. We're not talking about lying on a resume.
Moving on then. Our first question we posed is kind of like, as creatives, why are we more susceptible to imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think for creatives, think about when you introduce yourself to someone. It almost feels like you're not even in a legit as an industry. I'm doing air quotes because people don't really understand it as much. It's not like, oh, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You're like, I'm an artist. And everyone's like, huh, okay. So you already are like met with doubt before you even like get to explain any part of your story. So there's almost that like, and imposter syndrome starts with what people are going to think about you. So what people think of our industry as a whole already, starving artists, it already has that stigma attached to it that can make it really hard to overcome imposter syndrome.
Yeah, especially when we've talked about this on other episodes, when people's first reaction to you saying like, oh, I do invitations or custom artwork. And they're like, oh, do you have an Etsy shop? Like, yes. They dumb it down to just being about an Etsy shop. And you're like, no, I actually run a legit business and make good money doing it. So it's not a hobby.
Exactly. And another thing too with the creative industry is that being creative is just a whole nother beast. It's very emotionally driven, or at least for me it is. I know like that's where a lot of my imposter syndrome comes from. Like if someone doesn't like my work, I can feel, oh, my work isn't good enough. And art's so subjective, it just becomes harder to define something that's done right, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So you definitely feel more the struggle and wonder if maybe it's easier. Why is it so easy for them to paint? And for me, it's so hard. And you just go down that whole imposter syndrome rabbit hole.
Yeah, the whole rabbit hole, and the fact that what we see on Instagram and social media, which is where we connect as creatives for the most part, is you're only seeing the end product and the result. You're not seeing someone else's like tears of frustration when they can't get something to work. So of course when we're looking at everybody's like perfect ending, we forget, oh, they had a long road to get there, and then, maybe that makes us feel like insufficient or bad about ourselves. Like, why can't we do this as well? But we forget that the people on the other side are human too. Like, everybody's struggling, or Cami, you just spent like hours testing your white ink printer to get it to work correctly.
Yes, I know. And everyone's like, oh, that's so great. And they think I just probably did it with like the first try and it just worked perfectly, and it totally didn't. And people are asking me, like, already asking tips on it. I'm like, I don't know yet. Like, hold on. I don't want to give you advice until I know exactly, like, have a better idea of things. And that makes, that leads down to imposter syndrome, because I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone thinks I like know what I'm doing. And like, I mean, I ordered the completely wrong printer when I started this first out. So I had to like send that back to Amazon, which, like plug it in and get ready to put my toner in. I'm like, this doesn't even fit. How did I mess this up? Like, I ordered 254 and I needed 452. Like, who makes printers with those numbers anyway? So yeah, still an idiot over here, you guys. Don't even worry about it.
I know. I mean, we both have totally had our moments where we're like, why the heck did I do that? Or how did I mess that up? Or it's just really easy for us to like get down on ourselves when we pretty much have to like rely on ourselves 100% for our business. Like, if you're working in a different profession or you have a day job, if someone on the team makes a mistake, I feel like the team kind of has to handle it. But for us, if we make a mistake, like, we're basically like kicking ourselves in the face.
Yeah, I know. And then you're just like, I am not good enough to do this job. Like, my clients are going to know I'm a fraud, and because I made this gut-wrenching mistake, and it always just spirals into so much negative self-doubt, and I hate that feeling. I hate it so much.
How often, like, does that thought in the back of your mind creep up on you where you're like, I just want to quit. I'm like done doing this. I feel like that's my like signal, kind of, where I'm either like burnt out or really feeling like an imposter of like, what would be easier? Just like not doing this anymore.
Yeah, that's it. Going to be a barista. That is it. I'm like, I'm going to work at Lululemon. That's it. I'm done.
I know. Like, I feel like for me, it's like maybe like every like couple months, right? On the roller coaster, like probably like once a quarter for sure.
Yeah, I think there's like different levels of imposter syndrome for me, that I feel like the ones where I'm like, that's it, I'm going to fold leggings at Lululemon, is probably like once a quarter. And then like imposter syndrome with like my painting and stuff, I probably feel like once a month, maybe once every couple of weeks, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? I have no idea what I'm doing. That's the problem. Oh, so yeah, there's like different levels of things for me, I guess. Like, it depends on which type of imposter syndrome. Is it falling into like the business imposter syndrome kind of things, or like my creative, like artist side? Does that make sense? There's two. So for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely two. I think they're different in many ways. Like, and I think for me too, being able to sometimes listen to that voice will help you, or help someone discern like what they're supposed to do as opposed to not. Like, I know for me, like, I feel a lot more like stressed about creating like watercolor art than doing something like geometric, or like I really love printing methods that I have to like set up a plate or vectorize something. That's just like how my brain works. Not that you should stop if you like feel stressed during doing a specific type of like activity, but I think that has allowed me to kind of like hone in too on things that I like more. But that being said, like obviously you still deal with imposter syndrome and the stress of like creating watercolor, even though that's your thing and the thing you love.
Yeah, but like when I did that letterpress suite, you're totally right. Remember, I felt way more stressed out about it because I'm like, I feel like an imposter because I don't do letterpress and I am trying to like do this correctly. And I literally sent the wrong file like 4 times because even though like I knew what I was supposed to do, I wasn't doing it correctly because I'm like, I don't work in Illustrator a ton, and like I didn't design in Illustrator, so I was like working backwards from the beginning. So it just made the whole process harder. And I was like, that's it. I'm never doing letterpress again. But I mean, I will probably now that I know what I'm doing. But
now
I did
that
feel
you know, right?
imposter syndrome trying to like make this work. And like I even told the printer, I'm like, look, I'm gonna need some hand holding here because I probably am not gonna do this right. And they were just like, okay, yeah. And then they didn't, and I was like, I need it.
They didn't hold your hand, you mean?
Yeah, I wanted them to hold my hand, but they didn't. But it's fine. I held my own hand and we figured it out and it's all good.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you still like got to the end result. And now I would say like you will be more confident about it in the future.
Yeah, like being uncomfortable isn't necessarily imposter syndrome. That was probably just me being uncomfortable with the process and nervous about it, you know, the client being pleased with it because what if I mess it up? But there definitely is an element of imposter syndrome in there because, you know, she asked me if I had done letterpress before and I told her straight up, I was like, I haven't done a letterpress suite. So this will be the first one, like my client, because she really wanted it. I was like, so there's going to be like some different elements going on to figure it out, but it all worked out. So.
Did you guys end up, this is like a side question, did you end up doing like the digital printing first, then letterpress, or the other way around?
With the suite, you mean?
Uh-huh.
So I did it all at once, I guess. I'm not sure I understand your question.
No, because you had some watercolor artwork on that suite. So it had to be printed digitally and letterpress separately.
Letterpress, yeah. But
do you know which one they did first?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So the printing company just chose. Okay.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they did digital first because they wanted to match the letterpress ink because the details and RSVP card was digital. So they wanted to make sure that the ink matched. Or maybe they did the other way.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That was also, I mean, that's another really, really hard thing to tackle is different printing methods in one suite, like especially matching things. So no wonder it was like stressing you out.
Because it was all one color and I was like beyond stressed. And my Pantone book really is from 1974 because it was my dad's. And I was like, I don't know if it's faded. I'm not sure. That doesn't have all the colors. Like,
oh my gosh, didn't she tell you the girl at the printing company was like, yeah, you should probably buy a new one?
Yeah, she's like, that belongs in a museum. It is a relic. And I was like, thank you.
But that's what makes it so special though, because it's like so old.
It really is. It's awesome. But those things are expensive. They're like $100, aren't they? Like 300.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
a Pantone book. I mean, I've put off buying one. So, I mean, what? No, I totally have all the Pantone books.
Well, there's so many other ones with like new colors that they added. I was very confused. And then when I picked a color, she's like, oh, it needs to be uncoated. I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me that?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to keep track of. If you're wondering why the heck stationers get stressed out so much, guys, this is why. There are like a million decisions to make. And this is why people should hire us to do it for them.
It's an if this, then that, and everything. It's like, okay, well, if you do this, then you can do this. You can't do this, but you can do, all like leads down to something like, oh my gosh. And it's just like a giant puzzle. It really, really is. It's not simple.
Like right now for me, I'm talking about like vintage postage and where to source it, where to find it for the Stationer Summit this fall, which is really exciting. And I know plenty about this topic, but I've told Cammie I'm also like nervous about talking about it. And she was like, don't be ridiculous. It'll be fine. But then I got even more nervous the other day because I did an invitation suite that I designed. And the bride absolutely loves the invitation suite, which is like all you can ask for, right? She like barely has changes. So then I present postage options to her and she just like did not like them at all, like completely failed in that department, like with the options that I gave her. And I was like, oh my God. And like, this is what I'm talking about in the summit. And this is like the one thing in this suite that I'm like not getting right. But I just like took a deep breath and obviously we got it all figured out and we're able to like pick things eventually. But The reason I thought about that story is because you said like if this then that, which is like always the case for everything, because now that we've picked the postage, originally I wanted to like print something in white ink on the front of her envelope to
Yeah.
like mirror part of the invitation suite, but now that we have more stamps on there, I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna have room for the addressing anymore, so I'm trying to like back out of that. Like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, it's like you can't always like predict what's gonna happen like as you add elements to a design. Freaking
Yeah.
stresses me out.
I know, you gotta be flexible. Everyone has to just be flexible, you know? Like, that was, like, same thing for me on a suite, like, the postage, I didn't she wanted vintage postage, but I didn't realize that, so I, like, designed it with 1 stamp, and then she was like, "Actually, I do want vintage postage," so now we're doing 3, so, like, there was a design on the front, so now I gotta flip-flop it the other way, and I mean, it's not a big deal, I just literally flipped it, but it's, like, one of those things where you just gotta be like, "Okay, how can I fix this where it's gonna look good?" You know?
Yeah, basically our entire job is problem solving.
Yeah, that is yeah, I'm a problem solver. That's what I'm gonna tell people when they ask me what do I do.
Right? I'm a professional problem solver, so yeah, put that on your resume.
Totally. Yeah, and that wouldn't even be a lie, okay?
No, it wouldn't at all. I've thought about that before too. Like, man, wow, I'm full of side tangents today though.
I
But
love
if
it,
I
it's
were
fine.
to try to go back into the workforce, like how would I put my job, like this creative job on a resume? Maybe we could talk about that eventually. That would be kind of
That
interesting.
I love that idea. Okay, let's table that for later. Don't even talk about
Tabling
it.
that for later, everybody.
Table that for later.
Okay, so we have written down here, like, how does imposter syndrome feel, quote unquote? Like, how does it manifest itself? Because for me, it's totally, I think, like emotion based because I feel always like a heightened sense of anxiety. I feel like I don't like my work. I don't feel like motivated. And there's always that little bird in the back of my head that's like, it would just be easier to get a job somewhere else, you know?
Yeah, totally. I always think, well, this is always the first thought that comes to my mind is I literally hate everything. I don't know why I always think that, but that's what my first thought. And I'm like, oh, about to experience some imposter syndrome right now. And then I also feel like a little clown from Boston is going to pop in the doorway and be like, you're an imposter. And he has an accent and he's just like, I don't know. He's always like coming out for me. Or then I feel like I also feel imposter syndrome when I'm not connected to God. I haven't prayed a lot, feeling like I'm going to fail. And then I'm just like, that's it. I'm going to become a stay-at-home cat mom and I'm just going to go to fitness classes all day. And I just feel very frustrated and have a lot of negative self-doubt. So that's like all the ways mine manifests itself. And it could be any of those at any given time.
I know. Now I feel like we have to like print out like a little clown for you that
Oh my
says
God.
"impasta" on it, so then you
He
can
has
look
to
at
be
it and
from
laugh.
Boston. It's very
Yeah.
important that he's from Boston.
Okay. Okay.
Key detail.
The Boston clown.
Oh,
Okay.
the Boston clown. He's gonna come get you. The Boston imposter.
That's what I'm gonna think now though, like now whenever I feel this way.
Yeah.
Which I would say too that as people who do education for others, Cami, that this like totally creeps in the back of our mind. Like when we're about to release something new, we'll get on and the phone, right? And we'll have conversations and we're like, what are we even doing? Like,
Oh, every single time. Yeah, that has definitely elevated the imposter experience for me. Like now there's like an entire like troop of clowns coming through the door being like, imposter! And then they just slam the door when they leave. It's just the worst.
right. Because like when you're in front of more people and there's a bigger audience, then I think there's even more of a fear of what if I do something wrong or misstep, or when you do misstep, like how to emotionally handle that. You know, when people offer constructive criticism or something like that for like what we're doing in our business. Like Cami and I said to each other the other day, like, we love the positive reviews on the podcast, but there's always that fear in the back of our minds of like, we just know it's a matter of time until someone doesn't like it, you know? And that's where that like creeps in and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm such like an imposter. Like, surely there's someone out there who won't like what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for that. And that's okay. It's okay if people don't like what we're doing. I just want them to be like, how could these girls even think that they had knowledge to share? And then I'm like, they know I'm an idiot. Like,
but I feel like we've also been like really upfront with people too, to be like, hey, we're still learning and we're not pros, you know, we're not perfect, or we don't want to give you guys the impression that we like know that that we know 100% what we're doing, because we don't, and no one does.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge way of tackling imposter syndrome, is just being open and accepting it and being like, yeah, well, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to go with it. Like, if I was like, I know everything, then it would probably be more difficult for me to like struggle with imposter syndrome. But because I can, take the humility to be like, I don't know everything, and that's okay. Like, that definitely helps counteract some of that. And then just sharing that, being like, yeah, it's okay. I don't know everything. Here's how I do it. You might do it differently, but this is what I'm doing, and it's working for me. So,
right. I love that, like, in our industry, there are so many ways to do one thing. You're like, the way I might have decided to do this is not the way someone else is going to do it, and vice versa. Like, there's a lot of different paths you can take to get to the same endpoint.
yeah, I mean, there should be relief in that, the fact that there's so many different ways to do things, that literally none of us can be an imposter because we're all kind of doing our own thing. So,
yeah.
Take comfort in that. Are you ready to push the envelope in your stationery biz and finally get the answers you're looking for? We're bringing together industry leaders in one place with a virtual conference that anyone can attend.
The Stationer Summit is an online game changer with session topics that are for stationers by stationers. And with 18 different educators, you can't afford to miss this. We've got the names you love: Swell Press, Design House Amora, Papel & Co., Design by Laney, and so many others. And you guys, they're here to bring you the answers you can't get anywhere else.
It's time to break down the walls of the stationery industry and open the door for anyone and everyone. We believe there is room for all of us at the table, and we're offering you a virtual seat. And of course, we'll be there too, talking about everyone's favorite topic, pricing.
Here are the deets. Early bird registration takes place August 26th through 30th, and during this week, you can save $100 on your ticket. Official registration will open September 16th through 20th, and the full price is $397. Even at full price, this is an absolute steal.
Get on the waiting list today at stationersummit.com.
All right, so we have a list here of like what events within our own lives or within our business can sometimes spur imposter syndrome, because there's definitely things that can kind of like bring on this feeling in the moment.
Yes.
Why don't you start with a couple of yours?
Okay. So mine are on the bottom, so I'm just going to start from there. So,
okay.
Recently, these were two things that made me feel imposter syndrome. So when I was recently asked stationery etiquette questions, just like on the fly in an email, I felt like such an imposter, because I was like, I literally don't know the answers to any of these, and I'm a stationer. Like, this was a mother of the bride was asking me questions on the phone. She's like, well, if it was do we put the middle name here? And I was like, I felt like I was just BSing my way through it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm probably giving her totally wrong advice, but I felt like such an imposter because I didn't know these things, which I always just check all the little books and fellow stationers. But gosh, I felt like an idiot. And then another recent one was a client or a lead told me that we'd been following up. I'd been calling her on the phone. I felt like she was going to book with me. And then she sent me an email and she was like, I found someone cheaper. Here's their name in case you want to start referring them out, because their work is also really good. And I was like, and then I went and looked at their work, and I've never heard of this person. And it was like beautiful watercolor. And she was like, and she's way cheaper than you for people who don't like your price point or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am an imposter.
Oh my
and then
gosh,
the clown
Kimmy.
came. I know, I felt so bad.
The fact though that she said that, like, I don't mind when people tell me like if they've gone a different way, but to say like, here's who I chose, has just as good of work, quote unquote, which like,
well, she was like, you seem like the kind of person who's nice enough to refer out people, so I wanted to, and I do refer out people, but I don't know, I felt like an imposter, because I was like, why am I charging more than this person? I feel like they're better than me. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, no.
That was literally yesterday. I was waiting to bring it up in this podcast.
You just got to remember value, what you're offering. You're charging based on value.
Exactly. And it's fine, so that can definitely spur up imposter syndrome, like your pricing. As you guys know, I'm really big on pricing your worth and making money. And so then I was like, wait, maybe I need to lower my prices. And I was like, don't do that, you crazy. Don't do that. And it's all fine.
Don't
but
do that.
that definitely spurred it.
I would say that's a big one though, like the
Yeah.
thought process of should I lower my prices? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I've
totally.
definitely had that before too when people say something similar, or I've talked about the story before, where someone accidentally forwarded their email to
Oh,
me
yeah.
with like being like, this is insane, like how expensive this is. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
You were like, wait a minute, am I doing something wrong? Like,
and then I confronted them about it because obviously I can't keep my mouth shut. So I was super nice, but I was like, just so you know, you did forward your response
oh my
to
gosh,
your
I love
daughter.
that.
So
But yeah, okay. Side note on pricing, we'll be talking about that in the Stationer Summit, having an honest conversation about pricing. So be sure to sign up on the waiting list so you can hear our thoughts on pricing. But anyway, carrying on. What type of events spur imposter syndrome for you?
I would say when things go wrong with a client. So like I was talking about, even with the postage I chose, right? Something so simple, and it didn't take me too long, but for her to be like, this really isn't what I'm going for. I was like, dang it. Like I wish I could have nailed it, especially
Yeah.
since this is the topic I'm teaching about in the summit. So those two kind of like correlated with each other. But at the same time, too, I have to remind myself that I would rather have a client express to me, like, be truthful about something they don't want than just being like, yeah, it's perfect, and like resenting me for it. So that's like the flip side. I have to remember that. But a failure or bump in your business, we're going to be talking about stationary snafus, I think, in the next episode. But
Yes.
especially stuff with printing, like miscommunications with printers or vendors if things aren't showing up on time. I had a very stressful situation last fall where there was like a miscommunication with a vendor, and they were going to deliver the like weekend maps. It was like a weekend itinerary for a wedding. And they were going to deliver them the day of the wedding by 8 p.m. And I was like, no, no, no. The point was to get them like there 2 days before the wedding so that they could put together like the welcome boxes. It was like this whole thing,
Oh
this
my
whole
gosh.
miscommunication. I had to get them like printed last minute. I was literally going to drive like 5 hours to deliver them myself. And by the grace of God, like it all worked out okay. And like one of the bride's friends was able to drive it instead. But I remember like in that moment, I was like, this is crazy. Like, what am I doing? What right do I have to even be doing any of this? Like, I'm just screwing it all up. Then negative words from others in the industry. Which
Yeah.
yeah, that could be like a tough one. Or, not everyone agrees on certain aspects of like pricing or how you approach something within your own business. And that goes back to the whole like everyone runs businesses differently. But that can be like hurtful, if someone's like, I don't agree with that or whatever. And then just like seeing everyone else's amazing, perfect work on social media all the time. And guys, I have to tell you, lately I've like literally been about to quit Instagram, just like throw my phone against the wall and like call it quits. And like not only because of that, because of like many different reasons. But yeah, sometimes like social media can be a lot more discouraging than encouraging.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, everyone is doing all kinds of amazing things. And there's people who follow you and they're like, wow, she's doing something amazing. But like, we're just looking at everyone else's stuff. And sometimes you just get so sick of looking at everyone else's stuff that's so good. And you're like, gosh, darn it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can definitely feel that.
Right. Because like one picture doesn't accurately portray like the years of expertise and work that went into getting to that moment. And that's what it's so easy to forget, especially when you're starting out. It's really easy to forget that. Like I remember starting out and like looking at Laura Hooper's website and I was like, oh my God, I will never be able to like make a website or have anything like this. Or like, that's a horrible mistake, by the way, to like look at people who have been doing it for 10 years when you're like
yeah,
just
and you're starting out. Yeah, that is a horrible mistake. Don't even do that.
Like, yeah, don't do that, guys.
Yeah, some more for me would like on the creative side of the imposter thing would be when the ugly stage of a painting, like there's always an ugly stage, okay? And this every single painting I feel this, like this is not like a weekly thing. This is like a daily thing. Every time I paint, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is the ugliest dog painting. I will never be able to fix this." And I literally have to get up and walk away and call my dad and be like, I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to paint anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I go back and everything's fine. But there's always that ugly stage where it's just absolutely terrifying and you feel like you're going to ruin it. But I've also calmed down with that because I'm like, if it really sucks, I can just get another piece of paper and start over. Like, it's not like I have to use the same one, but I've never started over. I just keep working and it's fine. Or also just not coming up with anything creative, you know, when you're designing, trying to come up with something cool for a client and they don't give you a ton to work with and you're like, I literally have no creative ideas. Like, I'm an imposter. Like, I don't know why they're coming to me as an expert when I can't think of anything to do for their suite. Like,
right.
That gets me. And just finding the things that are literally paramount to my business incredibly hard. Like, painting is very hard for me. It's like, it's not like an easy process. Like, I have to mentally gear myself up for it. And I'm like, that makes me feel like an imposter that I can't just like go sit down and have a leisurely morning sipping tea and painting in the sunlight. Like, I have to, it's like going to war. That's what it feels like. And I'm like, maybe it's, I don't know if it's easier for others or not, but like, for me, it really is hard. And people are like, you make it look easy. I'm like, well, I'm telling you, it is not. I am an angry artist over here trying to work to get this out. So that can totally make me feel like an imposter.
That's so interesting. But I guess I have noticed that with you where like days that you're painting or you've set aside time to paint is like the time when I normally don't hear from you. Because you're right. Like, you really have to get in the zone. Or I remember like calling you once when you were in the middle of painting and you picked up, which is like hilarious because you could let it go to voicemail. But you're like, hey, I'm painting right now. And I was like, okay, I'll call you later. Hangs up the phone. Like, I just like know how serious you get about it. But I didn't realize like what you said there is like so cool and hopefully really helpful to other people is that you make it look easy, but to you it's still hard. And I feel like a lot of that, a lot of us feel similarly and feel that way of like, what I'm doing is really hard. Or like when I paint pet portraits, oh man, I get like real nervous about that. I'm like, this is so hard. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, because you think, oh, if I was really a good artist or an expert at this, it would be easy to do. But it is still incredibly hard. Like, there's nothing easy about it. Like, I mean, I guess some things it's gotten slightly easier, but only because I have more confidence. Like, I don't think the process has gotten easier. I actually think it's gotten harder because now I look at details even longer. So it takes me longer to do a painting, but I do have more confidence that it's going to turn out okay. Versus in the beginning, I would be really afraid of doing a painting. Well, also, like, this is a whole other side tangent of my confidence in painting.
Yeah,
but
okay.
like growing up, when I would be painting, my dad would always be there and I could be like, Pop, what do I do if I like in this? I'm not really sure where to go. Like, what color? How do I mix up this color? And he'd always be like, oh, you just do this. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And then I always had someone to ask. And so I think I stopped painting for a long time because I didn't have my dad like with me all the time to paint. So I was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. And now I'm like, oh, I finally have gained confidence of painting, not with my dad, like right next to me that I could ask him questions. So that like definitely helped me grow. But it took like, you know, this entire time that I've been doing my business to get to that point. Like,
you're like
where I finally
literally
feel confident.
Emotional right now.
I spread my little wings, you know, and finally got out of the
I
nest.
just like love pop too so much.
I know.
So
yeah, I mean, I didn't paint for a long time because when I went to college and stuff and I wasn't there with Pop all the time, then I didn't want to paint because I was like, it's too scary. What if I make a mistake? You know, and he'd always be like, it's just paper, buddy. Just get new paper. Like, you can waste it. It's okay.
That's so cute. Well, a lot of that has to do with like stepping into something that's almost nostalgic, right? Like you're doing an activity that's incredibly nostalgic for you, but like without him there. Oh my God, Kimmy.
I'm about to cry. Oh my gosh, this is so emotional. I know. See, like painting is like, it's so much more. It really is an emotional thing. And that's why it's different than any other industry with like being creative because it just spurs so much other emotion, especially for me, you guys. It really, really does. But
I'm just a big baby. I'm a softie, guys. I'm like such a softie.
Anyway, I love
if we talk about our dads, we just like get like this in general. Or just our families.
Oh God. Okay. All right. We're gonna move on from that topic.
Moving on. Let's break the negative cycle. How do we do that?
No, we're still in that topic because I wanted to just point out some other imposter syndrome things, not on the creative side, but more on like Biz Birthday Bash side. So like teaching stuff. Oh my gosh. That is like a whole nother, like this podcast is like a whole nother level of imposter syndrome for me. Like it's totally different. You know, we kind of touched on that earlier. Like someone's going to leave us a review that we know nothing, Jon Snow. I haven't even seen Game of Thrones, but I got the lingo.
You're hilarious.
Or like when people message us or DM us and they're like, oh, that's so easy. Or you guys are the experts. And then I'm like, oh my God, they're calling me an expert. They have no idea. Like, when someone gives you a compliment, sometimes you can feel like an imposter.
Right. I think someone referred to us like as business mentors once, and both of our reactions were like, no. Like, no. Like, that's not like the right word to use. Like, we're not like business mentors. Like, but I guess like other people see us like that, but we like don't see ourselves that way.
Yeah, it's very weird. I feel like you guys are putting us on a pedestal, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know. Like, and then I don't want to let anyone down, and then I get nervous, and oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're just like all in this together, basically. Oh man, I'm gonna go on High School Musical
together, and we know it's. Oh, I don't know. I don't remember the rest.
I don't remember the rest of the words. I was like,
I did the clap though. I did the clap.
But yeah, I mean, we're all figuring this out like every single day. Like nobody has it all figured out. And if you had it all figured out, like it wouldn't be fun anymore. I mean, that's part of it. It's such a catch-22. Gosh dang it all.
I know, it really is. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what can you do to break the negative cycle of thoughts from being an imposter?
It sounds like you keep saying impasta.
It is. It's spelled like pasta.
Impasta.
Yeah, it's not, there's no ER. Like I said, it's the Boston clown. Okay, so for me, breaking the negative cycle of thoughts, I first need to pray and just give it to God, give him my burdens, and be like, all right, I'm going to calm down. And then we talked about this earlier too, but just accepting it and being open about it, like turning off your inner critic and turning on your inner coach. Like, how can you grow from this? Like, okay, so I feel an imposter about, you know, my business finances or whatever. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, how can I learn and grow from this and make myself stronger in this so I don't feel like I don't know what I'm doing? And then looking back at kind words or reviews. If you don't have a little folder in your inbox where you save nice things that clients have said, then you should totally do that, because I keep that, and I have, keep your reviews on Etsy. I go back and look at those podcast reviews. Oh, it just makes you feel so much better when you're like, okay, at least one person trusted me to do this. So, yeah, that's always helpful to see. I mean, more people are telling you kind things than negative things. You're the only one telling yourself negative things most of the time. So
yeah, most of the time it's always what you deal with is always like a 98% like positive, I feel like. But as humans, it's just like really easy for us to get hung up on the things that go wrong. But I do love, you kind of already said that, Cammie, but you just have to remember at least one person thought you were good enough or you wouldn't have a business, period.
Exactly. Yeah, and the other whole thing about where you think you're just so worried about what people think about you, but the truth is they probably aren't even thinking about you, and that's okay. That's a good thing. You can just slide under the radar making your mistakes because no one's looking at you.
I know, there's an actual psychological like term for that, and I can't remember what it is, but do you know what this reminds me of, Cammie? This reminds me of like Lady Gaga's speech she gave for A Star Is Born, and every single time she would say the same thing, where she was like, there could be 100 people in a room and 99 of them don't believe in you, but like one does, and
focus on the one.
And that man's Bradley Cooper. And guys, she literally, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to look up like you need to look up like there's 99 people in a room. Just Google that, because it will come up and it'll show you this montage of Lady Gaga where at the press conferences, I can only imagine press conferences are like the worst when you have to say the same thing over and over. But she literally said the same thing every single time. But the point is that she's right. Like, there could be 100 people in a room and 99 of them don't believe in you, but one does. And that can make the difference.
I'm like, I can't believe that YouTube video made it into our podcast, because you sent it to me and I was like, why is this so funny? And then I watched it and I was like, this is amazing.
It's amazing. It's
it really is. I don't know what it is about it, but oh my gosh. Okay.
It's because she manages, even though she's saying the same thing, the way she says it every time is just slightly different. Like, she takes pauses here, or she like drags out a word.
That's what it is.
It's like the the acting of her and like the drama, and like I'm obsessed with her. Like she's amazing. So, and even Lady Gaga and Beyonce are freaking amazing, and people still have negative things to say about them. So maybe they deal with imposter syndrome too.
I'm sure we all do. So, okay. Other things to kick it to the curb would be to take time to be proud of the things that you've done instead of just rushing through them. Like after you create something you love, like really look at it and be like, dang, I made this. That's pretty cool. Instead of being like, okay, I did that next project. Like just, celebrate your little victories, be proud of yourself, pat yourself on the back, all those good things. Like there are some things that you've done that you're really proud of, and you should just, relish that for a little bit. It's totally fine.
That was literally me when I figured out like that custom laser cut gate for my client. And I just kind of like sat there and just like looked at it once I like had it in my hand, and I was like, I did this. I figured out how to make this happen. I was so ecstatic. And then I wrote like a really long post in our Facebook community for the A to Z directory, like telling everybody about like all the things I had to go through to like make it. It was like very dramatic, but it was very rewarding. So I remember being so proud of that one.
Yeah, sometimes the struggle can be the most rewarding thing. Like, like all the maps I do are always the hardest thing. Like it's such a struggle, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then when I'm done, I'm like, that's pretty cool. I did this, and it like actually looks good. Yeah. So be proud of what you do. And then of course, continuing your education and learning, because we always say, what is it? Knowledge is power. So I always feel super powerful when I know what I'm doing and like have more education under my belt. So education really is the remedy / anti-imposter syndrome. So Station Our Summit, what's up? You should totally get in on that. But anyway.
For sure. You have another funny note here too, like key things to punch imposter syndrome in the face. I like what you wrote.
Yes. This is my 1-2 punch for imposter syndrome. So number 1 would be to be original and be yourself. Like what works best for you. Like when I felt imposter syndrome, when I first started out, like trying to do organic calligraphy, which clearly is not my thing at all. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try because I know people like this. And then when I was like, I'm just going to relax and do the thing, like paint it the way that I would do it. And then I didn't feel like an imposter anymore because I was truly being myself instead of like trying to fit in the mold of someone else's dream or someone else's style. So when you are true to yourself, you're going to feel less like an imposter. And then, of course, taking action is the next punch. So either by learning or by doing. So whether you're, listening to our podcast and trying to glean some knowledge from us idiots, or attending the Station or Summit and learning from our amazing educators, or just like doing something like with painting, it's kind of like you can't really just read books about painting or calligraphy. You kind of just have to do it. And then when you take action and start getting better at it, you're going to feel more and more confident in your skills, and the imposter syndrome is going to just fade away a little bit. And then the third thing is to just give yourself some grace. We are truly our own harshest critics. And I have this quote from C.S. Lewis that I really love. So humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. So just like giving yourself the grace to not worry so much about what you're doing and just focus on, relaxing and letting things flow naturally.
That quote is funny. Because I think that quote can be interpreted in so many different ways.
Oh, I totally agree. But I felt like it worked well here. But now I'm overthinking it. Now I'm like, no, it doesn't really work. But I'm leaving it because but I feel like it goes along the theme of imposter syndrome. And it's something that's always in the back of my head is like, don't think less of yourself. Just try to like stop thinking of like everyone's thinking about you all the time.
Yeah, no, it's still like, I think it has like, that's why that quote is so powerful. It has so many different meanings, because now I'm sitting here reading it and I'm like, whoa, this is like blowing my mind. Like,
I know,
so, like,
he's so smart.
like,
I know, right? Gosh,
I'll read it one more time, guys.
Okay.
It's C.S. Lewis. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. So he's like obviously talking about being humble, but then at the same time, he's talking about like just to take the spotlight off yourself in general,
Yeah. I think the spotlight of pressure is kind of what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay. What do we have here? Oh, we talked about, and now that we had the cryptic quote that we just confused everyone with, thanks, Cammie. So, how has imposter syndrome manifested itself differently in our personal business versus Biz Birthday Bash, which I think we really kind of touched on, but the element of teaching and putting ourselves out there as people who know what we're doing is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
So, like the pressure to say the right things, to make the right decisions, make, I don't know, have it all together. I feel like I'm not qualified sometimes. I mean, most
Mhm.
of the time, but
Yeah,
you
no, I mean,
know,
for sure.
yeah, I'm like, we're just sharing what we're doing, and you can't be wrong about if you're sharing what you're doing. Like, you might be wrong about the way you're doing it, but if I'm like, this is what I'm doing, like, no one's gonna be like, no, you're not. They'd be like, yeah, I am. So, yeah. So keeping that in mind, but golly, I do get really nervous. Oh
I
gosh,
think
now
I
I'm getting
said to
nervous.
somebody the other day, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I was like, sometimes I just wanna, like, go back to being a wallflower, right? Where, like, no one, like, knew, who I was, or I wasn't, like, sharing so much information because it can get scary in so many different ways, just to, like, be putting things out there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I was sharing something about that white ink printer yesterday, and Carly was like, "Oh, just heads up." Carly from CZ Invitations was like, "Just a heads up, don't print with your envelopes with an open flap because the envelope glue will ruin the laser." And like I didn't know that, and I was telling Sierra, I was like, "Oh yeah, I just print it with the flaps open on this,"
Oh
and
my
she was
gosh.
and so I like let her know. I was like, "Thank you so much for letting me know that," because I had no idea. And I was like, "God," and I'm about to write a blog post, my yearly blog post on this. Someone messaged me too, a side note. She was like, "Are you going to write the blog post in a year or is it going to be soon? Because I wanted to buy the printer." I was like, "I promise I will do it soon." I was like, "You know me too well," but
Yeah, that's so
um,
funny. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Um, and I feel like I was gonna say something else too about us, like, teaching, but now I can't remember. I think I probably already touched on everything in that regards anyways, so
Okay. And then you have this little nice list of famous people that have admitted to experiencing imposter syndrome. So we
yeah,
have, I mean,
big
see, it's not just
names.
us. Oh yeah, go ahead. You read the list.
Maya Angelou, Tom Hanks, Michelle Obama, Michelle Pfeiffer, Emma Watson, and Wikipedia had, like, a bunch more of them, but I didn't know immediately who all of them were, so I felt, like, weird listing off names of people that I don't know, but the one that really stuck out to me was Michelle Obama because I was like, "Oh my gosh, though, like, what an amazing woman," and especially, like, her poise and stuff, like, I would have never ever guessed that she,
No,
like,
I
once
know.
doubted herself. But I guess I could also see why because, like, that would be terrifying. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, any position like that would be terrifying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this all makes sense. I feel like Emma Watson makes sense because she was like such a young child when she was thrust into the spotlight. So she probably was like, do I know what I'm doing?
Right, right, and
I
she
mean, I
probably
would be.
has, like, that those doubts too that you're right, like, being thrust into the
And playing
spotlight
such
so
a
young.
huge role,
And such
like
a huge role,
Hermione.
and so now she's probably like, "Are people picking me because they like my talent or just because I have name recognition from Harry Potter?" Right? Like, she
Yeah.
probably that could be maybe something for her. Guys, I'm just, like, projecting right now. Who knows
Ah.
if Emma Watson feels that way, but
But
yeah,
she has experienced imposter syndrome. We do know that. So
yes.
we'll leave it at that. But okay, so I want to wrap this episode up by giving you guys some good news. I know it's been all crazy, but we have some good news for you. So if you have imposter syndrome, it means you are an achiever. So boom, pat yourself on the back for that. Because if you didn't care about your biz, you wouldn't have fears or doubts. So that means you're actually, doing a good thing here with the imposter syndrome. So we're all works in progress and constantly learning. Just don't let the fear of failure hold you back because being wrong and losing is just part of the game. Like even pro athletes miss their shots sometimes. Like it's not like pro basketball players are always making every single point, you know?
Mhm.
So just tackle your failures forward because you are already enough. Ta-doom.
That's perfect. I love that. Sometimes Cami and I don't always see, like, the notes that we've added to our document. So this one was, like, such a sweet little surprise. I'm like, you, like, packaged everything up with a little bow. I love it.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I think that covers imposter syndrome and how we feel like idiots and ridiculous, but it's totally fine.
Yeah, that being said, though, if you guys are enjoying our crazy podcast episodes, make sure you head over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. That's really what helps other creatives find us. Or simply share a screenshot of you listening to the podcast on your Instagram stories and tag us at Biz Birthday Bash. We love seeing that you guys are listening, especially when you guys are listening and like painting artwork or doing all these cool things. And our friend Molly like even scheduled us on like Google. So every Tuesday, like Google Home plays our podcast episode when she wakes up in the morning. Like, what? How cool is that?
Oh my gosh, that is the coolest thing. I can barely even figure out how to turn the lights on with Alexa. She can't hear me. I think I have a lisp or an accent or something.
Oh, it's okay. Alexa listens to Will a lot better than me, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, she likes Alex. She does not like me.
Look at us. Here we're trying to like wrap up this episode, and now we're talking about Alexa.
Alexa, turn off the lights. Okay.
Mine's probably out there.
She
like,
didn't hear that
right now. It can probably hear me saying that, but
I tried to do a manly voice.
Anyways, y'all, like I said, rating and reviews on iTunes, or if you have a question you want to ask for us, we do Q and Cake episodes. They're every 5 episodes, and you can go to bizbirthdaybash.com/Q and Cake to submit a question, and then we might potentially pick yours to talk about. So we love those episodes. They're fun.
Absolutely. And thank you guys so much for joining us on this lovely episode. Take care, Bowler Bear.
Bye. Hey there, fellow stationers. Are you creating custom invitations and still sending a lackluster contract that's hacked together with Google searches and generic templates? We've got you.
We've created a custom stationery contract written for stationers by stationers, and it is lawyer reviewed and approved. #LegalRockstar. The custom stationery contract covers every stationery snafu, protects you and your client's interests, and sets up an expectation of professionalism. We've combined our previous contracts as well as years of experience to bring you a contract that covers your booty and your biz. So become a put-together pro and breathe a sigh of relief knowing that you have a contract that is easy to understand and avoids confusing legal jargon.
The custom stationery contract is only $227, which is half of what you'd expect to pay anywhere else, and it's written by 2 gals who have seen it all.
Spoiler alert, it's us.
It's time for you to do things right. Go to bizbirthdaybash.com/contract to purchase and download your copy today.